All right, and we can begin. This is the viewer's choice class, and if you have a game at home, you can send it to info@stlouischessclub.org, and I'll print it out, and I'll ball it. I don't know, and then we might look at it. So yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, now I had a lot of people submit their games, but I just ate, so I can't look at most of them because I don't think I could hold the food down. No, you guys played great. I'm just kidding. So we're going to look at two games today. One game was played today at the chess club, and the whole audience is made up of those players because we get a lot of people here at the chess club. And this is my first time doing this class because this is the greatest class ever. And I looked at all the games that were submitted, and this is the one that I liked the most. It was a little suspicious, but only a little. Okay, and this was submitted by Mike Shuey against a last name of Russell. I don't know the first name, probably Jack. No, nothing. Terrier. Okay, so the person with white, it says 1300, and the person with black, it says 1800. So I don't know if there's a USCF ratings. And the guy wrote a long, intro. It says, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice." Oh wait, that's something else. Okay, so he wrote a lot of stuff, and then I have to delete it. Okay, so let's have a look at the game. The person who submitted the game was white, and he had a 500-point upset, or so he says. Okay, he played d4. Now this move is so bad, I almost just stopped looking at the game right now, but I figure I'll give him a chance. We'll look at it again. Okay, so d4, d6. Now a lot of people, including some people I'm related to, they close their eyes when they play chess, and they make the first 7, 8 moves, no matter what you play. And a lot of these people are people who play the London system. And people who play the London system with white, they play d4, they don't care what you play. Then they play knight f3 or bishop f4, and again, they don't care what you play, and they just make the same few moves. Now, white did that, except white played super aggressively in the middle game. This is actually a good way to beat a higher rated player, even though his moves were very suspicious, they were complicated, and too complicated for his opponent, so his opponent went down in flames. So he played bishop f4, which is not a move that I would play when my opponent plays d6, because my bishop on f4 is sort of hitting a pawn chain, and I can't really do anything great. But some people just play the same moves, and they don't really care what their opponent does. Bishop f4 is okay. It's not the losing move, not yet. Okay, so then they played sort of King's Indian-ish London style. Okay, and these moves are all reasonable. Now, white tried to transpose into a line that I play with white. And sometimes in the King's Indian, when I've played d4 and c4 and moved my knights out, sometimes I play bishop f4 and e3. I don't do it all the time, but I do it sometimes. Here, since black's bishop is already on g7 and he has this nice diagonal, I definitely would play in London style by playing c3 at some point and trying to thwart the bishop. But white played c4, and that's okay. But it makes it hard for white to defend over here because his bishop can't get back there. And most grandmasters and most chess books recommend in these kinds of positions when there's a bishop on f4, if you're considering playing e5 or c5, the usual King's Indian type of breaks, they recommend c5. Because that way you can try to take advantage of this diagonal, you can play queen b6 and try to punish him here, and that puts a lot of pressure on white's position, because if white plays d5, he could get in trouble on that diagonal. Okay, now black did something else which I like. He tried to get the bishops. And a lot of times in the London, white plays an early h3, so he can preserve his bishop. Mike Cummer approved, although it's usually to h6. And so black played knight h5, which makes a lot of sense, trying to get the bishop. And normally, white is going to move his bishop around a lot and make black, I should say, weaken his pawn structure. So something like this would be some kind of normal idea. I don't have to play bishop g3 here, but let's play it anyway. And now in this position, you could see that probably black having his pawns here instead of back home on h7 and g6 makes it easier for white to attack on the king side. So a lot of times, white's going to play knight c3, queen c2, and long castle, and then try to do some kind of attack over here on the king side. White did do that, but he didn't make black move his king side pawns forward. And that's not forced, but that's like a normal idea. So instead he played bishop g3 right away. Normally when I'm white in these kinds of positions, I hope that my opponent takes my bishop right away so we can clarify the situation. Although here, if black doesn't take the bishop, white could probably play bishop h4 at some point. And then I'm not sure why the black knight's on h5. The knight's on h5 to take the bishop. They took the bishop. Okay. And black played knight c6, which I probably wouldn't play, but it's okay. And now white made a move I don't really understand. I don't think white understood it either. So this was the first move of the game that I think is pretty bad. It's queen c2. I mean, knight c3 is a standout move. The queen on c2 can get harassed by bishop f5 or knight d4. The queen's on c2 basically so I can castle queenside, which is what white did later, but I can't castle queenside yet because my knight's on b1. So I'm not sure where my queen should go, and in fact, that queen made a lot of moves the next 3 moves. That queen was moving. So I would play knight c3 here for sure, and then I don't know, I probably prefer black, but okay, I would have white because that's the kind of player I am. Okay, so queen c2, and now I believe in these kinds of openings, black should try to play c5 when the b2 pawn is not defended by the bishop. But black played knight c6, so now if he plays c5, that's even more cheating than I do. So he played e5. Okay, makes sense. Because white played queen c2, his d pawn is really attacked now. The queen is not defending it. And in fact, I like to take some openings and compare them to other openings to confuse my students even more. And the more confused they are, the more money they give me, because they're like, what are you talking about? And then I turn them upside down and there's no money. Okay, and in the queen c2 Nimzo Indian, which if you've watched my YouTube channel or this YouTube channel or chesskid.com or chess.com, or you're following me somehow and I don't even see you, but you're watching my videos, I play a lot of queen c2 Nimzos. I make a lot of videos about it. And my d-pawn is not defended as much because I moved my queen away from my d-pawn. And this is the same pawn structure. We have a pawn on c4, a pawn on d4, except here I'm not sure why white played queen c2. The queen c2 Nimzo, you're defending your knight, you're defending the e4 square. So now the e-pawn is attacking the d-pawn. It's just hanging. So white has to do something about that. White played d5. That's probably what I would play. Knight b4, attacking the queen. White saw it, attacking the knight. And now white sort of messed up his pawn structure by playing a3, because after knight a6, we're going to play knight c5 with tempo, and then we're going to play a4. And that means the knight's going to stay on c5 for a long time. Normally in a King's Indian, especially if we're castling kingside, if black ever plays knight c5, we want to be able to kick him out with b4. But we can't do that because white played a3, and black's going to play a4 and block it up. Good thing for the en passant rule. Okay, good thing we have a Canadian here, en passant. All right, so white played e4, which is, I don't want to say it's not, it probably is the best move. White's losing a lot of tempi. White's playing queen c2, white's playing queen b3, white's playing queen c2 here, white played e3, white played e4, white moved his bishop to f4 and g3. Because white's moving the same pieces 2 or 3 times, you can see that half of his pieces haven't moved yet, even though we're on move 14. But he has made a lot of pawn moves. Okay, conversely, black has moved everything that's important except his bishop. He got his knight to a good square, he castled, he has a pawn in the center, he's ready to play f5, he can move his bishop if he wants to. But he played the positional move, which is actually very important for the audience. He played the move a4. And that fixes the queen side due to the en passant rule. And this pawn structure in a King's Indian, if you see this, that's good for black. And normally what white does, if black ever gets in knight c5 and a5, is white plays b3 before he plays a3. And the reason is if black plays a4, white can play b4. If the pawn's on b3, you can't take it en passant. But here the pawn's on b2, so it can never move. Now, I was complaining, but I probably shouldn't be. White's not going to play b3 or b4 because white's going to castle queenside and play for checkmate down the h-file. Very suspicious, but it worked. Well, they're very suspicious. Okay, so I was complaining earlier that white didn't play knight c3, and then he showed me. He played knight bd2, which actually makes more sense because of this b3 hole. So now not only is he defending his e-pawn, but he's defending b3. Probably better than knight c3. So there you go. And black played f5, and white castled queenside. Now, when I was playing this game over quickly earlier, I was like, wow, black's playing great. Black played knight h5 and took the bishop. Black played f5. Black played knight c5. Black played a4. And white made a lot of moves that I wouldn't have made. White played queen c2, queen b3, queen c2. That's not very effective. White played e3, then e4. And black has the two bishops. Black has more space on both sides of the board. White has more space at the center, but the center is blocked. So I really like black here. I was like, boy, black's doing great. And then black got destroyed, got crushed. And I was like, is it me? Okay, because usually it is me. You can ask any of my wives. And I put this on the engine, and the engine said it wasn't me. It was the person playing black here. Okay, and here, black started to make mistakes. And I tell all of my students this, and someday one will listen. You can play as many good moves as you want, and your opponent can play as many bad moves as they want, and that will happen. And the computer will say you're doing great. Then you make one bad move and another bad move, and you're losing. So you can't just stop playing well. And here, black made his first mistake. I have a rule, never trade. You all know that. And here, white doesn't really have any active pieces, and I can't really suggest a move to activate them. These are the white's three minor pieces. And if I was to move one of them, I don't have a lot to suggest. I mean, they're sort of okay where they are. So if I'm black, I'm going to try to develop or increase my advantage somehow. Either bishop d7, developing my bishop, or c6, attacking the center. Or I could be creative and put my rook on the b file. That's too creative for me. I could play queen f6, just so I have more attack on the f file and more defense of my f pawn. My queen's not at home anymore. I have a lot of moves that are reasonable. Black took on e4 because a lot of people feel compelled to keep moving forward and getting stuff done. That gives away some of his advantage, because now the white knight on e4 is very strong, and the black knight on c5 was immovable. That was the greatest knight ever. That knight's there forever, and you can't attack it. And then black's like, all right, you can attack it. Get rid of that good knight. So if we trade knights, then black's beautiful knight on c5 is gone. So black pinned the knight and developed a piece. Makes sense. And white played bishop to d3. And now black made another mistake. I would take that bishop all day. Okay, I would Adrian Peterson that bishop, because then I have the two bishops against two knights, and I dominate the white squares. And black made a decision that I don't like. He played knight b3 check, forcing king b1. How could you force your opponent to play king b1? Always play king b1. And then he played knight d4, another decision I don't like. Okay, and now, I don't know, position's probably about equal. I mean, black's knight has gone off of c5. White has a knight on e4 somehow. It's illegal, but he still did it. And white can all of a sudden move his kingside pawns. Okay, the kingside pawns are fluid. And we have the open h file still. And I'm not sure what black accomplished in the last 5 moves. Basically helped white. And now, in the notes to the game, white was very proud of this move and said it was like an Evans Gambit on the other side of the board. But this move loses a pawn, so don't do that. If you're taking notes, don't do that. So I'll let them take notes. Oh, here's a drink. Wow. Water. Okay, so white played a move recommended by Matt Larson. G4. Okay. And it sacrifices a pawn, but I don't know why. So he lost a pawn. That pawn doesn't matter a lot because it was doubled. But he wanted to play f3 and g4, and he did play f3 and g4. I'm not lying to you. So if I was white and I wanted to play f3 and g4, guess what I would do? I would play f3 and g4. Okay, he did it where it lost a pawn, so I'd play f3 here, then g4. All right, so he played g4. Taking the pawn is good. Okay, now the next move doesn't make a lot of sense unless you follow it up with taking the knight. So I think the guy changed his mind. I think. If he didn't change his mind, I'm baffled. He played bishop f5, which is okay. Bishop d7 is better, but bishop f5 is okay. And after bishop f5, g4, you take the knight on e4. And I guess I prefer black because black's a pawn up. okay? But he played g4, then bishop d7. So he let white play g4 for free. Now it could be he wanted white to play g4 because he thought the f-pawn was weaker. So he was like egging white on to play g4, maybe. Now I wouldn't egg my opponents to play g4 because there's no pawn on g2. And actually, because of that, there's a move that white played here, which we see in the Dragon Sicilian sometimes. And we also see in a line that I play white in the Queen's Gambit declined. There's a line with white where I trade everything, I move my queen to d2 or c2, I castle long, and I push all my kingside pawns. And if you push all your kingside pawns and your queen's on the second rank in some Sicilian, you can usually play queen h2. This actually happens in the Dragon, because in the Dragon, black's playing g6, bishop g7, and in the Yugoslav attack, white's playing f3. And often white's playing g4, h4, if you play the Dragon Sicilian with white. Well, since white played g4 and f3, we can play queen h2. If my opponent could play queen h2, I would hope that they didn't. Therefore, in this position, I wouldn't play bishop f5 because I'm helping my opponent play g4, queen h2. So I don't think black saw queen h2. I think if I was black and I saw queen h2, I would be upset about that. I don't want my opponent to do that. Okay, so h6 is forced because you don't want to get crushed down the h-file. And you don't want to play h6 because you moved all the pawns in front of your king. You would like them further back. And so now white's position is very reasonable. I don't know if white's better or white's winning, but white's doing okay. And over the last 10 moves, the position's really changed. White basically couldn't do anything, and I don't like what black did, and now white's really attacking. He continued his attack with g5, and it doesn't matter what your opponent's rating is. If they checkmate you, you lose. The truth hurts, okay? And he wanted to keep the file closed. He played h5, which is correct. Okay, now white went all in, and instead of black calling and having a good position, he folded. Okay, and folding wasn't the right option here. Knight f6 check is all in, and after bishop takes f6, he went all in again with bishop takes g6. So he didn't mind sacrificing a piece because he wants to play queen h5, very scary. Now, as you all know, and when I say all of you, I mean you, and not you at home, there's a camp going on here right now, and it's the top juniors in the country aged like 9 to 14, somewhere in there. And they're all between 2,000 and 2,400 for the most part. There's 16 of them, possibly 15. I think one didn't show up. Anyway, the camp is a U.S. chess school camp. So Greg Shahadi's here, he's the U.S. chess school. Aviv Friedman, who runs the Shine Friedman Foundation, some made up name. And I think it's actually Mark Shine. I think I actually know who it is. And Armin Ambartsumian, who's an IM from California, who's GM strength, and they're coaching the camp here. And today, and or yesterday, the days sort of run together, Armin was, I think it was today, Armin was one of the kids to raise their hand and confess. And he's like, when you're being attacked, do you get scared? Even when the attack's no good? And one kid's like, yeah, when somebody's attacking me, I'm like, ah. And the other kids were like, no, I'm the greatest. Okay. And Armin said this is very common. When somebody's attacking you, whether it's good or not, you're scared because you get mated in one, or mated in two, or your king's in trouble. And you figure if you're better than your opponent, and in this case 500 points higher rated, you can beat somebody from almost any position, but not when they're mating you. And if they mate you, then you can't use your extra rating points to trick them. So here, black made, I think it was the losing move. Yeah, he made the losing move here. And this is a very difficult position. The best move is very hard to find. I wouldn't expect anybody here to find it. So let's ask the audience. The computer gives this as 0, 0, 0, saying this is a draw. So who can find the draw? What's the best move for, and by the way, you remember earlier in the game when I was complaining about knight b3 check, and then white played king b1, and you guys were like, Ben always says play king b1, but why? What's wrong with him? Okay, there's a lot of things wrong with me, but man, my king on b1 is safe. And if it's not safe enough, I can go to a2. If my king was on c1, where it normally is when you castle, black would have an extra tempo by checking, that he could get his pieces back into the defense. The king on b1, you got nothing. So here, black needs to gain a tempo, and he has to play a move which looks crazy because it forces white to play an attacking move. but the attacking move doesn't quite work, so black can draw. So how do we save our bishop and gain a tempo? Anybody? I'm giving you a hint.
E5.
Bishop e5 is the right move. That attacks the queen, right? So the obvious move is queen takes h5. Now, again, this is what Armin was saying today in the advanced camp. He was like, when the guy's attacking you, you're scared. But you can't be scared when you play chess. You have to analyze variations. Okay, white doesn't have 7,000 threats here. White has one threat. What's his one threat? Queen h7, checkmate. So we play
Queen e7.
queen e7. That's the end of that threat. Count piece up. And the computer says it's a draw because white checks and black moves out of check, and white checks and black moves out of check, and okay, draw. Okay, and you can see that it's hard for white to put more pieces in the attack unless he's playing Bughouse. Then he can do it. But for example, if it was black's move here, I guess I could play bishop f5 check and trade bishops, and then I don't know, I up a piece. Okay, so obviously for a human, it's really hard to play black here because you're really scared. Okay, but the computer says it's a draw. Okay, and when people are attacking you, it's easy to make a mistake because you're too scared. So here, black played king g7, which gives the piece back, and he was probably thinking he'll play rook h8 and defend. Okay, makes sense. Okay, and then g takes f6 check was played, and taking this looks exceedingly dangerous, so he played rook takes. And this is funny because normally lower rated players don't like to give all their pieces away on purpose, they just do it by accident. But here he was doing it on purpose because he wanted to attack that king. And he did something Morphy would be proud of here, okay, because Morphy was always using all of his pieces to attack. And you can see the one white piece which isn't attacking at all, and he played rook d to g1. Now, according to the engine, white has more than one good move here. White's basically sacrificed nothing, and he has a safe king and black doesn't. But he sacked a piece, and he's like, man, I'm going to go get your king. And Yasser Seirawan would agree with black's next move, although he wouldn't have black here. When somebody's mating you, you might as well be a piece up rather than not be a piece up. Might as well have the extra piece. Then if they don't mate you, you'll win. If they don't mate you when you're out of material, you're still not better. So they took the piece. But obviously, any grandmaster looking at this has never been so scared. We have a rook on a8 doing nothing. White has this huge attack, and black's not up material. So that's not good. Okay, so he took, and white crashed through. Check, check. And now he played a subtle move. Usually, low-rated players just keep checking, and that might have worked. But he played rook g1 with the subtle threat of rook g8 mate. The truth hurts. There's not a lot of defenses to that. Not a lot. So I like the way that white was not intent on just checking every move, but actually found a quiet move. Pretty good for 1300. Black played bishop f5 check. When I first saw the game, and I was playing it over quickly, I didn't understand why rook g8 wasn't mate. Then I was like, oh, you're in check. I could safely play rook g8, though, because then if I take it back, I can do something else, because I can't move my rook. So my illegal move would still win. Unless it was a blitz game, then take my king. Okay, so he took. And now it says king e7 and the game ended. So I don't know if black played king e7 then resigned. I don't know, maybe. Here white has an infinite number of mates. I thought chess was finite until I saw this position. However, there's only one mate in one. Who can find it in this brilliant class I'm teaching? You just said, yeah, mate. Yeah, yeah, right there. Yeah, they're the best. Yeah. Okay, so everything else is mate too. Rook g7, queen e6, queen h7 has to lead to mate. I don't see how. Yeah. Queen g5 leads to mate, but I don't know how. But rook e1. So after king e7, the game ended. So I don't know if white mated him or black's like, man, this isn't good. And you'll notice the whole game on move 35, black didn't move his rook. And white got actually all of his pieces involved. And that's how you beat a higher rated player. You attack them, and if they make any mistakes at all, mate. If you don't attack them and they make a mistake, you might be a pawn up, then they beat you anyway. So it's good if you're attacking them and they make a mistake. Then you're like, oh, mate, good. So basically, black was playing great until move 18. And then until move 16. I don't like fe4. I don't like knight b3 check. I don't like knight d4. I don't like bishop f5. I don't like bishop d7. And king g7 is the losing move. He had to play bishop e5. And it still would have been a draw according to the engine. So after white sort of got outplayed that game, then he outplayed black by getting this attack, which probably shouldn't have worked. But that's why you submit the games, because sometimes they work. Okay, now there was a game played today downstairs between two of our finer students in the room. Of the 3 people in the room, they're 2 of the finest. Okay, and 2 out of 3, that ain't bad according to Meatloaf. Now we have a big board because you guys are big boys. Okay, this game was played between Isaac and Sasha, the battle of the 5-letter named people. Although on your birth certificate, does it say Sasha? Yeah, I didn't think so. Also, he's not Isaac. No, he is. No, he is. Yeah. His name tag. He's not sure sometimes, but name tag. Now, Isaac actually works here, and his brother works here. So I guess white won, so we'll keep white at the bottom. Okay, no, I'm just kidding, black won. Now they don't know, so yeah. Okay. All right, so D4, D5. Now Isaac Sasha being the greatest person who ever lived, which is saying a lot, played the Chigorin, hooray! Named after named after Chigorin. Okay, and that's a very aggressive opening. And so white didn't meet it properly, so black got a good game, sort of like in the first game, and then black folded. I fold. Okay, he's from Canada, what do you want? So C takes D5 might be the best move, but there's a lot of moves that are good. That's one of them. Okay, queen takes D5. I've had white and black in this position, but not at the same time. E3 is the common move here, and it got more common after the famous game. That was funny because they don't know. No. Okay, and in fact, you at home don't know either.
I'm barely in this room.
Right, nobody in the home knows, nobody at home, nobody.
Is it a Kasparov game?
Correct. Against?
Morzevich?
No, that's close, because you just picked somebody who plays the Chigorin every game. That was good. Right. Yeah. No, Kasparov Ivanchuk. Oh. Yeah, and Kasparov won in like 23 moves. And the truth hurts. Yeah. And that game went, is 10, 15 years ago. It went E5, knight C3, bishop here, 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 here. And I remember Kasparov played F3, bishop D3, knight E2, E4, and Ivanchuk resigned. Okay. Now, the reason that's the main line, after bishop D2 takes, you can also take with the bishop. And I want to talk about this because of what happened in your game, actually. And after takes, there's only one move grandmasters play here. Only one. However, non-grandmasters play a lot of moves, but grandmasters play one. Do you guys know what it is, or can you figure it out? What about you at home? No? All right. Anybody?
Don't know.
Knight F3.
Knight F3 is close. You have the right idea, but you put your knight in the wrong square.
So E2.
Yeah, because after knight F3, I play bishop G4. Okay. So knight E2, right. And after bishop G4, this is actually a known piece sacrifice that nobody good plays, but it's really interesting. I've analyzed it for hours, and I can't remember anything. I just remember that it's really confusing. I've played it in blitz, and I always win, but in slow chess, I don't have the guts to play it. And so what I normally do is not play bishop G4 and take, and just white slightly better because white has 2 bishops. Now, I had this position against starts with an S. Selden Trimble. Wow, I figured it out. Do you know who that is? He's been to the club for like 7 years, and we've been here for 7 years. He lives maybe an hour or 2 away, maybe in Colombia, maybe. And he's 1970 to 2010 for the last 30 years. He's an older man. He's probably in his late 60s, early 70s. Unclear. If he's watching, sorry if you're like 50. He's not 50. Okay, anyway, I played Selden in this position. I was black because I played the Chigorin. And Selden took this. Don't do that. Yeah. Well, now black just has a big advantage. White has an isolated pawn and the bishop's here. Boo. Okay, but nobody, I told him after the game, knight E2 is the move, and he's like, what? Yeah, he doesn't know the opening. So, okay, now in your game, something similar happened where there could have been an isolated pawn, but it didn't happen. So that's what happened. So you played knight F3, which I've also faced, E5, which is correct, knight C3 is correct, bishop B4 is correct. And now, everybody plays bishop D2 except Isaac, getting his opponent out of theory. Good job. Okay, so the main line is bishop D2, bishop C3, bishop C3, E4. Now, I faced knight E5 probably more than knight D2, and then it goes takes, takes, knight E7. And in my opinion, black is a tiny bit better, and I've won every game with black I've ever had here. Okay, but my opponents are always low rated, of course. And also a move is knight to d2. And I faced this twice recently in the last 5 years. And I played the move e3. Now I'm thinking.
Why wouldn't you take the pawn with the knight?
With the knight.
Because you just moved your knight in front of the queen that was defending the pawn. Like white just blocks the defensive.
Oh. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not white's move. You mean black's move. Yeah. You can do that. Right, then queen a4 check forks your king and knight. So you have to play. Knight c6. And then I could take the pawn on e4, or possibly play rook d1, or possibly win a rook. Yeah, they all win. Although only taking on g7 wins. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so you cannot play e3 or you can play e3. I played e3 in the Pro Chess League against Michael Brown, and I was better at some point. Then it was a dead draw. Then we repeated, and I didn't want to draw, so I lost. Yes. Okay, I showed him. I showed me. Our team still won. I showed our team, but I didn't know it was the last game of the match too. It could have been the drawing won the match and losing didn't, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever, I'll lose. Okay, so that's the main line is bishop d2, bishop c3. Okay, you played e3, right. Now, all that stuff that I was saying earlier, well now, because white's move order is slightly inaccurate, you can give him an isolated pawn. So you can take on d4, and white has an isolated pawn, and then you play chess. White's not worse, probably equal, but okay. Instead, you played bishop g4, so he played bishop e2, which I think is forced. And now, I guess you should either take or play e4. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably take on d4 because, I don't know, I like isolated pawns for my opponent. But you castled, which I would play in blitz chess for sure, because I can castle. And now this is funny because I've taught this many times. Often in the Chigorin, the bishop is pinning the knight and the knight's attacking the queen. That's a common Chigorin theme. And after white castles, which looks innocuous, all of a sudden your queen's attacked. Okay, and here, maybe unlike every other Chigorin position in chess history, maybe you should move your queen. Usually in the Chigorin, when your queen's attacked, you take the knight, which you did. But maybe you shouldn't here. Because the whole point of knight c6, queen d5, e5 castles is to pressure this. And then once you play bishop c3, that's the end of that. And you open the b file to your king. So maybe this is the one exception to the always take on c3 rule. Maybe move your queen somewhere. Okay, so bishop c3, bc3. Now, this guy's solid, even though black attacked it with all his pieces. Then he got to play bc3, so he's okay. And now the d pawn is really okay because you played e4. Okay, and that doesn't look too terrible. Knight d2. I mean, h5 is an interesting sacrifice, but since you're from Canada, you would only play a5, not h5. So, yeah. Probably taking is right. Yeah. All right, now in this position, we've castled opposite sides, and we haven't completed development yet, and white's going to play c4. Normally in these positions in the Chigorin, when our pawn's on e4, we play like queen g5 and try to do something with our bishop, but your bishop's gone. So I can't play bishop h3 unless I'm playing bug house. And they play a lot of bug house in the camp, so maybe I can do that. So it's really hard to attack here for black because black has no pieces to attack with. And moving all of your pawns forward takes forever, and white has the open b file, so white's sort of ready to attack. And white has all these moves that gain time. So probably I would take white here. Okay, so you played f5. Rawr. Okay, c4. Queen d6. And according to your brother, no wonder you won, there's one game in the history of chess in this position. The players were a little suspicious. They weren't grandmasters. They weren't IMs. They weren't masters. And white played rook b1, which looks very reasonable. And the engine says your move is better because you prepared this beforehand. And you played bishop to b2. Yeah, bishop's better on b2 than c1. Yeah, okay. And now, you got to watch out over here. That's a nice bishop. Okay, knight f6. I agree with that. You guys were complaining about h3. Well, h3 is a chess move. It stops knight g4.
I think it was just a waste of time.
Stop.
If he plays knight g4, I can play it afterwards.
No, they don't play queen h2 mate.
Oh, spooky.
Yeah, see, you're better than you thought you were. You with some crazy comment.
Which color is Isaac?
White.
He's right next to you. Oh, you mean in chess? Yeah, he's white. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and the guy next to him you never saw before, he's black. Yeah,
Weird, huh?
yeah. That's the famous Arjun.
No.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, famous. And on my channel, my YouTube channel, they all spell your name wrong. So can you guys go to my YouTube channel and tell them to spell his name right? It's Arjun, Jen. What? That's not even a name. You guys are the worst. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, so you followed the Finegold rule, although I don't know about that here.
Yeah.
When my opponent plays h3 and they castled and I'm mating them, I mate them. So the pawn really doesn't want to be on h3, although I do recommend not getting mated with knight g4. Okay. So when they play h3, I'm going to cheat. I'll be like, Isaac, look over there. And he will. And then I play g4. Yeah. And Isaac's like, wait, what? Oh, I must have missed that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm definitely like pushing these pawns. Okay, and I don't care if I lose all my pawns as long as I made them. So king b8's a little slow. Shouldn't lose the game, but it's, you're wasting a tempo. Because your king on c8, I don't see how that's worse. It seems like if he mates you on the b file, you could play king d7. So maybe your king's even safer on c8. But, okay, so king b8, rook fb1 I didn't understand, but the computer said it was fine. I would play rook ab1, but okay, whatever. And again, rook hg8 is too slow. You gotta be fast. So you don't have to prepare g5 when you can play g5. There's no, okay. So rook hg8, getting off of this diagonal, too slow, rawr. a4, okay, reasonable. Knight e7, sort of passive. Bishop a3 I like, good move. Okay, queen d7. And now the computer really likes a move that you did not play. You played c5, and then the crowd was booing until my throat was sore. But instead of c5, you should play knight c5. Now again, you could have told him to look over there, then you could have played knight c5. And then he would have been like, how did I get to c5? Where was it? So what are you suggesting, young man? Yeah, knight b3. And knight c5 is hard to stop because unless he holds your arms down. Otherwise, knight c5 is coming. Yeah. The computer also likes a5. See, c5 like gives the d5 square away and blocks your bishop. Okay, luckily it lets your queen get in, so it's good for attacking.
Yeah, that's always my thought.
Right, but if you play knight c5, that's also good for attacking. Yeah. Okay, the truth hurts. All right, so knight b3 is so good, the computer gives white an insane evaluation, like +5, even though it's equal material. Wow. Crazy, yeah. Okay, so c5, it still prefers white. c6 is slow, because white's not threatening c6. You could take it with the knight. So again, I would be playing g5, g4, or g5, f4, or put a knight on d5. Maybe I would even play the shocking move, king a8, because I'm not really worried about my a7 pawn. He can't legally get to it. So I would be playing, if I was worried about getting mated, I might play king a8, rook b8. Then I would be less worried. Yeah. Now the problem with c6 is you can't go back to c7. If you could go back to c7, it wouldn't be so bad. So c6 permanently gives up the d6 square, which somehow he went to. Which doesn't make any sense for him. So when I play knight to d6, that's annoying. Right, Arjun? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, c6 gives away the d6 square. So it's not permanently. Yeah, so a5, that's not so bad. Again, I would play king h8 here. And then if he didn't notice, I'm okay. If he's like, man, good move. Then, okay. I gotta try something. All right, so knight c8, defense. I'm trying to push forward, but the game's not there. Rook to b3, slow and steady wins the race. Now it says rook f8. We'll never know which one, because later black played rook e8. That's not helping. Yeah? Okay, rook f8, rook a b1, rook f7, knight c4, threatening knight e5.
That's not what I was thinking.
And threatening, I guess, knight e5. Also, a6 is really good. And a6 is good after knight c4 because you defend b6. Yeah. So this is just winning because white's attacking and black didn't attack, even though he castled opposite sides. So once one side's attacking, one side isn't, then as Yasser Seirawan would say, you guys love Seirawan.
It's a free attack.
It's a free attack. You guys love Seirawan. You're like, I don't know what Finegold says, but Seirawan says this. Okay. But you should have said, it's a free attack for white because white can play a5 to a6 or knight on c4 to e5, as in the game Anatoly Karpov versus Garry Kasparov. Okay, but hopefully he edits that or doesn't. I don't know. All right, so now black should resign, but I'm just kidding. Rook e8, okay, and that makes sure that all the forks are available, okay, and they're Star Wars fans, so they use the forks. Hey, Ben, are you going to leave in my Yasser Seirawan imitation?
I might. I'll watch all that.
All right, yeah, I would edit that out. Yeah, no, you can leave it in. Okay. All right, now the engine is very keen on a6 because chess computers like to checkmate their opponent. So they're like, oh, a6, that checkmates my opponent. And then, man, I don't know what I would do if I was black. Again, I would try king h8, but now cheating loses. Because he plays a takes b7, then you still resign. Or rook takes b7, a takes b7 is better. So now when cheating loses, you know you're not doing well. Okay, but you played a5, but didn't play a6. You tricked us. Good job. Yeah, the only point of a5 is to play a6, but you were like, nah. And it was really good. Okay, so you played, instead of knight e5, forking a queen and rook, which is recommended by your brother, okay, you were, as Bob Seeger would say, working on your knight moves, okay? So you played knight to d6, because you didn't care about any of these pieces, just his knight on c8.
Didn't want it there.
I'm not sure why.
Didn't want him to be able to play b6.
Not sure why. You want to play what move?
I didn't want him to be able to play b6.
Let's ask a random person. Arjun, is black ever going to play b6 in his dreams?
No.
What? b6, the worst move I've ever seen ever. And I've seen everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, you have every piece on the board defending b6, and it opens up his king. So you prevented a move he would not play. Right. So, and also, that helps him play b6 because your pawn's not on c5 anymore. Okay, so knight d6, not the best move, but you're so winning it doesn't matter. And because of your brilliancy, you had the pawn on d6 just like you liked it for later. You knew it was going to happen.
I knew it was good.
You knew after the game. I mean, you knew. Okay, so you traded on d6. Okay, unfortunately, your position was too good. Okay, now you finally played knight d5 after he gave you d5 a long time ago, and then queen a6, putting a lot of pressure. I like the way you played a5, but not to play a6. That's tricky. Okay, and now the engine says that white is winning, but barely after queen c8, although still winning. Okay, in fact, pretty winning, like +2 maybe. Okay, but I can see not playing queen c8. That looks really passive. It lets the d-pawn move. I would be scared of bishop c5. I'd be really scared of bishop c5. But the reason the computer's not scared of bishop c5, I think, because I'm still scared of it and I'm talking about it. I think black plays something like b6 and you're discovering on his queen, which he wouldn't see, so you take his queen next move. He'd stare at the b6 pawn and then he'd be like, oh, my queen. Still probably winning for white, man. I wish I was kidding.
Can't you just take the pawn off the rook? Or no, the knight's there. Knight's up.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. There's a rook that can go here. There's a lot of, yeah. Remember, you stopped b6. Okay, and then if queens are traded, white will probably win a pawn, but that's what we call a Pyrrhic victory. That's what Arjun was saying. I couldn't stop Arjun from saying Pyrrhic victory, and I'm like, stop. Right, Arjun?
Right?
See? Yeah. By the way, I was kidding about AB6, but I don't know if I'm kidding anymore. Maybe I am kidding. Kidding is fun.
That's actually really good for
Is it? I don't know.
no, I think it's winning.
Man, when I hang my queen and I'm still winning, that's probably a good position for white. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm too old for this, but I'm analyzing this, and I don't know. I'm old. Me alone. I mean, it looks good for white, but if that's good for white, that's a bad sign. Okay. So instead, black played some another move. King a8. Okay. And that would normally be a good move because you're getting out of the pin and you're attacking his queen, and I think you should have played it a long time ago. That way a6 and queen a6 aren't as strong, and you could play rook b8. Okay, and white played a good move. So I'm pretty sure he was using a computer somewhere. Because I've never in all my years. Yeah, okay, I can't make that joke. Man. I can't make any joke. I mean, I'm thinking of a lot of jokes, but I can't make any of them. I'll just say Donald, that way you can delete it. Okay, so I just said his name. I didn't say anything derogatory. Okay, so rook takes b7 exclam, threatening. Is that too hard for the class?
Queen A7.
Very good. Queen a7 mate. Black stopped it. And then rook b7 threatening.
Queen A7 mate.
Yeah, so he stopped it. And then queen takes c7, it says. That's close. Queen takes c6. Okay, now white has two threats. Queen takes e8 and a6.
And Queen D5.
That's a threat? Yeah, okay. I mean, you might as well say d7. Might as well say king h2. All right. And material is about equal. White's a little bit ahead, but there's too much attack. Okay, now this is forced mate. The engine announces mate for every legal move. But for those of you who don't know, well, you two know. Well, I'm not sure if either one of you remembers, because the game was played like 2 hours ago. But what is the quickest way for black to get mated, which he found? So what is Arjun's like, what's the worst move for black? Although it ends the pain. What's that?
Probably rook E7, D takes E7.
No. He got mated in one. You're just, what's that? Man, he's trying to remember. Did he play king b8?
I almost had it.
Right. Yeah, king b8 is correct. Okay. And now the funniest part of the game, by far, is white played checkmate, and white played queen takes rook, and then black said okay, and white thought black resigned because white didn't know he checkmated him. And on the score sheet it says resigns. Then he crossed it out and wrote mate. See, that's funny. That's good. Now actually he knew it was mate. He was just kidding. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we know. Yeah. But I like the way you made somebody, you think they resigned. I said mate against somebody once when I was about 1900, and they made a move, and I was like, oh. Then when I mated him later, I was really sure about it. I was like, all right, I don't want to say it twice in a game. They can claim a draw the third time. So, yeah, I said mate, and the guy moved his king somewhere, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's better than what I was thinking. It was a slow game, so I wasn't always a grandmaster. I was something. Yeah, I was, not like you guys, but I was something. Yeah, I was, All right, let's see. We have time for 7 more games. 7:30. Wow. All right. So that was the games people sent in or played here. I'll look at your games next week that you sent in. I didn't have time, obviously. I'm not Eric Rosen over here, and so forth. I think the problem was the reason we went so long today was I did a Yasser Serouan imitation for 10 seconds, and that took 20 minutes. All right. So remember, send your games to info@stlouischessclub.org, and do not send them to gmfinegold@gmail.com. Don't do that, man. But you could send a donation to me. Then okay. But don't send a game. If it's like a donation and a game, just don't do it. Horrible. Okay, and so for the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis, and for President, this is Ben Finegold signing off. See you next time.